When I was approached by Amazfit to test out their T-Rex 3 watch, I was a little skeptical. I've been a pretty solid member of the iOS ecosystem for a few years now, and now that I've been wearing this thing for about a month, I can say unequivocally, it does literally everything better than the watch I was wearing before. I was really grumpy about my lack of battery life on my watch. This thing lasts 27 days. Did you hear what I just said right there? This watch will last 27 days. It connects to iOS. It connects to Android. It has 25 strength training movements and 8 sports movements. It'll track your pickleball games. It'll track your calories as you are wearing it. It's got so many health-related functions, I can't even go into it on this particular ad. But you guys should definitely check out the T-Rex 3 by Amazfit. That is us.amazfit.com, amazfit.com/402p. You get 15% off of your T-Rex 3 by using the promo code 402p. And that, again, is at us.amazfit.com. It is now my favorite sports watch.
Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Welcome to 4.0 to Pro, the pickleball podcast that focuses on a single shot, tip, or strategy to improve your pickleball game with every single pocket-sized episode. Our goal is to make you better on the court every time you hear our voices.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of 4.0 to Pro, your pocket-sized pickleball podcast, where we teach you a single shot or strategy every single episode. I'm Mike O'Neill here in Denver, Colorado, joined by my good bud Mircea in Boca Raton, Florida. Hello, sir.
Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm very well. Full of Thanksgiving mirth and getting ready to go to Boulder to play a little pickleball with some friends. So I thought we would chat a little bit about mindset on court.
That's a great topic.
Yeah, I had a situation last week that gave me this idea, and I don't know what your history is, so I'm curious to know when things get competitive and you get a bad call, how do you keep it together? You know, that's kind of what this is about, because no matter what level you're at, that's going to happen. You're going to get a bad call. It's part of the game. Or you're going to make mistakes. It's part of the game. How do we keep our mindset together?
It's a really interesting concept regarding the mindset that I think that you really need to look at it as a skill. And we all have our personal strengths and weaknesses. And I think you have to evaluate yourself in terms of what those are with respect to mindset. We all have times that we're frustrated with ourselves, sometimes with our partner, not intentionally, but just as part of being competitors on the court. And it's definitely a skill to be able to navigate those sometimes rocky waters for both yourself and your partner in order to have success as a team.
So here's the incident that spawned this idea. I was playing last weekend, and if you guys don't know, I have a pretty bum left knee. I've had 5 left knee surgeries, so it needs a fair bit of warm up, probably a good 20 minutes before I can fully plant and lean down, which means that my backhand dinks, I need a warm leg to be able to do those because I'm doing basically a lunge with my left side. So that means I've got to do some jumping jacks. I've got to run around a little bit. I've got to get some blood flowing in my legs. But as you guys know, what very often happens in pickleball is you start warming up and someone goes, "You ready?" And it's like, I've hit 9 shots. And that happens all the time in rec play. I never want to be the one that holds up the game because I need like this 20-minute warm up. So if I can get there early enough, in this case, there was 4 people playing already when I got there. So I started hitting on the wall. I was doing jumping jacks, things like that. Well, we get into the game. I barely hit a ball. We get into the game and we were halfway through the first game and I was barely warmed up and I was on the left-hand side. The server was on the left-hand side serving to me and did one of those slice, curvy outside coffin corner serves. And it happened on this particular court that there's a fence right there. There's not a ton of room. And it was just kind of look, it's a completely legal serve to do, but it wasn't in the spirit of the game. It's like you're taking advantage of the court space. And certainly he knows me well enough to know that I'm not running for that ball yet. I'm not anywhere near warm enough to get that ball.
Well, it sounds like a smart serve.
It was a smart serve if it were like a tournament play, not a couple of, buddies kind of thing. But I was like, really, dude? And it totally pissed me off. Oh. And my response to that, because we had the Blues in the game, my response to that is like, oh, really? And so we crushed them 11-2 the next game. And the first ball, the first sitter I got went at 300 miles an hour at his torso. He evaded it, but it was like, all right, dudes, game on. And so we crushed them. In that same game, that same guy had an ATP that the three of us saw out that he saw in.
Okay.
And he completely unraveled. Like the rest of the game, he basically just took off and he missed everything and hit a bunch of balls long. And you could tell that his mindset was just shattered from this call that he thought we got wrong. Mm-hmm. So where I dialed it in and ended up having a really good focused game, like my anger fuels me.
Yes.
His unraveled him. And I thought that is a very interesting dichotomy on how a bad call or something that can anger you can change the outcome of games.
Absolutely. And it really can. And I've seen it time and time again. Personally, I've been on the court with a bunch of just incredibly competitive people. And it's really an interesting dynamic. And I can look back on my experience when I was growing up playing tennis and junior tennis. And there were a lot of interesting parents that put a lot of pressure on their kids. And so their kids tended to be somewhat behaviorally challenged on the court, where they would act poorly and intentionally cheat partially because of the pressure that their parents put on them. I think we've all seen that dynamic. And then fast forward to at least right now in my 50s, where we have a lot of competitive senior pros that were former tennis players, but just our competitors in general. And we definitely have scenarios where a bad call or someone says something that someone else doesn't like. And we've all had this on the court, whether it's rec games or tournaments. So what I think that you did is that you altered your perspective versus the other player. And this is, I really think, what the key is. You used it as motivation, and he looked at it as focusing on the negative aspect of it. Oh, I got cheated. How unfair is it? And I'm sure that this mindset helped you play better. And obviously his game unraveled. And the reason is because he was focused on the past, and you used the motivation to continue to fuel your game with each point going forward. The perspective that you have. If you focus on the point that happened 6-7 points ago or last game, and you're still just fuming about the unfairness of it and how lucky the other team was or how unfair the other team is, when you look at it that way, you're not focused on your game, you're not focused on your partner. And so you lose concentration and you're going to start playing poorly. Whereas if you reframe it and use it as motivation, okay, well, this person, even if it was a completely legitimate serve, which it sounds like it really was, you were just kind of tweaked about it because it was a rec game and you're like, oh, I can't believe you did that. But you used it as motivation. So you used it in a positive sense rather than a negative sense. And it's really reframing that controversy or negativity or whatever it is. And you have to figure out on your own what most fuels you. There are players that I play against that get really fired up. They need that. They get fired up over even the smallest things. And even if there's nothing there, they make up something and they need some fuel and fire. And if they don't get that, they don't play as well. So when I play against those kinds of players that I know are going to be volatile, and I know that they get angry and want to get angry in order to fuel their fire and make themselves play better, I'm incredibly nice. I just say, hey, great shot. Oh, they'll hit a great shot or they'll hit a good shot and go, yeah, come on. So, yep, great shot. Really good stuff.
Good one.
And so I kind of turn it back, and it has worked. So you kind of have to read the room, if you will. But the biggest thing is you really need to recognize what works for you.
So in that same scenario, that guy lost the next game entirely because he was still focused on that shot from the previous game. And he didn't win until we became partners. And I was able to snap him out of it because he just was still so locked into this thing. There's a guy, Adam Mircea, who's a high-level racquetball, like a top 10 pro now. But I played with him here in Colorado when he was a kid. And even back then, when he was 14, 15 years old, we would finish a point and he would tap his racket on the back glass. And then he would physically wipe his hand over that tap. So he would tap with his left hand, swipe with his right hand. And that was the end of that point. He never thought about it again.
Yep.
And it was a really good physical way for him to reset. I seem to remember you said something like Georgia Johnson did a similar thing as well.
Yep. Georgia Johnson is one of the players. Leia Jansen is another one that has a physical routine that she does to mentally reset. I've actually done it when I've been serving. I'm a righty, and I just kind of have a cognitive reset where I look up to my left and mentally reset right before I bounce the ball, before I serve. Really, every pro athlete, and probably one of the most famous one is Nadal. Nadal is incredibly OCD, and he has all these routines that help him mentally reset. And it can be whatever it is that works for you. When I was playing tennis, when we used to drink from the ball cans, I used to kind of do the same thing as Nadal. I'd put the ball can. If I had a couple good games where I won both games, and I would put the ball can exactly where it was before. And then if I lost the games, I would move the ball can to the other side. So completely ritualistic, superstitious, nonsensical, yet it does give you a little bit of that mental edge that you need for yourself. But definitely you have to work on and recognize what you need and what works for you.
So Rafa, to bring him up, I was actually going to bring him up later in the show. He's got a book called Rafa that was the mindset training for me when I was playing high-level racquetball, and I really wanted to get my mental game. We used to have this joke where they should just put an extra racquetball racket in a glass case just so you could grab it and smash it when you missed a shot and put it back in the case. But reading that book, Rafa, really helped me with my mindset.
You know, guys, between 402p, my regular podcast, my vintage Porsche restoration YouTube channel, playing pickleball, actually restoring the Porsches, I don't have a ton of time, and I don't have a ton of bandwidth to think about dinner. That's where HelloFresh comes in. I get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to my door. And think about it. The holiday season's just around the corner. We are all looking for ways to spend and stress less. HelloFresh makes mealtime nearly hassle-free with delicious home-delivered, chef-crafted recipes that come together quick and are less expensive than takeout. The other part is I'll buy some lettuce for a recipe of some sort, and I'll use that lettuce like one time, and it sits in my fridge until I throw the lettuce away and buy the new thing of lettuce. HelloFresh allows me to step out of my recipe rut and make fun, flavorful meals without needing to hunt for specialty ingredients. And HelloFresh's pre-portioned ingredients mean less food waste, which means that lettuce is not going to go bad in my refrigerator. You can get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/free402p. Applied across 7 boxes, new subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/free402p.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. There's plenty to be thankful for. Your friends, family, and the fact that you can now get NFL Sunday Ticket for only $89. So thank yourself this holiday season and watch every game every Sunday when you bundle NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Sign up now at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Offer ends December 2nd. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games. Excludes digital-only games. Terms and embargoes apply.
And I'm curious about, for you, were you always mentally strong, or did you have some outbursts that you've now been able to harness in over the 20, 30 years of playing competitive tennis and pickleball?
Well, looking back on my growth and development from basically playing junior tennis, I had one really, really bad outburst when I was about 12 years old. I was playing a match and my mom had taken me to the match, and I was sponsored by Prince, and I did not play well, and I basically smashed 3 rackets. And it was horrific, poor behavior. And I got off the court and my mom didn't say a word to me. If my dad was there, it would have been a little different story. And I don't think I would have done it from my dad. But when I got off the court, my mom didn't say a word to me. We got in the car, and when we drove home, she just silently was crying. And I never acted that poorly on the court after that. And it was actually a huge turning point. So while I am very competitive and sometimes I get frustrated with an error or how a point goes, that's something I've definitely needed to work on because your partner feels it. Even if you're frustrated at yourself or the point or, how the patterns are going, you really need not to exude that frustration because your partner will feel it.
So I'm in Denver right now. And for you guys that have never played at altitude, it is a radically different feel of the game. The ball sails on you and all the timing is off. Like I've missed a couple of overheads literally because the ball doesn't fall as quickly as my timing expects it to. So I'm topping it and sending it 300 feet in the air. And I'm having to serve from 5 feet behind the baseline just to get the ball into the court because I was sending the ball out. So all my timing has been weird. And I'll say, dude, it's been a little, I don't want to say humbling. It's the wrong word, but like I come to these courts, I get invited. Some of the people listen to this podcast. So there's some expectations there. And then I'm playing 30% more poorly or 40% more poorly than I normally would because I'm not playing free. I'm literally having to think about every single stroke I hit. Don't hit it too hard. Don't hit it too soft. What's your angle? Like everything's in my head every time I hit a stroke. So consequently, you don't play very well in that respect. What I need to do is when I first get here, I need like a 2-hour drill session just to dial in my shots so I can just play free. But it was low key embarrassing to be out on these courts and kind of feel like I'm not living up to expectations. But then I had to think, look, this is just what it is. Like, this is just where I am right now. I don't owe anybody this 5.5 performance. But I think the mindset I have to take, not only while I'm here, but in general, if you're frustrated with your own playing, you're missing some shots or whatever it is, you're having a bad day, not hitting the thirds the way you want to. The thing I tell myself to help me really dial in, it says, look, man, this is as good as you are. If you were better than this, you wouldn't miss those shots. If you were a pro player, you wouldn't hit that shot. And that just means that I have to put more work on the drill court to not have these kinds of frustrating day. Sometimes, like yesterday, this is hilarious, double-digit net chords for points on the opposite side. It was more than 10, 3 or 4 different games. But I was like, I've never had a day like this where someone has scored so many points on net chords. But all you can do is shrug. There's nothing. That's part of the game. Bad calls are part of the game. Net chords are part of the game. You missing shots is part of the game. So I have to tell myself, look, man, this is just who you are today. And it could be today. You could be better tomorrow. But that's all you can do. You play as much as you can, have some fun. What I was going to ask you, though, is what do you do when you're on court with a hothead? Is there a way to try to mitigate that fire and try to keep people focused on the game ahead?
Well, I will tell you that when I first got out on the Senior Pro Tour is that I would often chirp back. I really never started anything in terms of calls, disputed line calls, controversies, yelling at people. We've all made calls that other people have questioned or been in competitive situations where someone says something that you don't like. But I wouldn't start or initiate any sort of controversy. But when someone started it, especially in mixed doubles, when the other male player would try to intimidate my partner, I would always chirp back and contribute to the controversy building. So I have completely changed my mindset with that. So really try to calm everything down, especially when you know there's a quote hothead or very volatile person on the other side, to just keep things calm and keep it chill. And just remember that after all, we're playing pickleball. And I think I mentioned this in the other episode when we talked about the Nationals and the run that Dave Warnbach and I had. One of the things that I really like to do in tight situations or if there's conflict, I really try to mentally reset and think, okay, we're out here playing pickleball. I mean, it's a great day. Where else would I rather be? This is what I want to do right now. This is a great experience. I'm so fortunate to be here. And those are the kinds of thoughts that I have to mentally reset and try to calm a situation or just calm myself and focus on the match.
I love that. And I really took to that when you mentioned it on the last show. I used it a couple of times yesterday when I was feeling particularly frustrated with my play. One of the great things that happens from drilling, and we both highly suggest that if you're listening to this show, instead of playing rec play one of the 3 or 4 days you play, make it a drill day because you will watch your game get so much better, so much faster. The more of those you can do, the better, because you don't typically get better as quickly playing rec play as you do when you're just drilling on a particular shot. So one of the great things that comes from drilling and being able to hit 200 backhand slice dinks is you start getting a rhythm and a routine of that particular shot. You really get muscle memory on it. When you have a serve routine, when you stand the same way, you're in the same spot generally, but if your motion is the same and your grip is the same and you're going through most of your shots over and over again, those are the things that you can then rely on when you're having a bad day. You can just start thinking, all right, I need to rely on routine right now because I'm introducing too much variable to my game. I'm trying to spin this top spin dink down to this coffin corner and it's not working. I'm hitting it too high and the guy's really getting a hold of it or earning it or whatever the thing is. Let me go back to my routine. It's one of the really great things that comes from drilling. So when you get into a situation, Mircea, where you're not playing the way you expect to be, do you have something that you rely on or do you end up going back to this is what we drilled, let me just get back to the basics?
I really focus on footwork. Footwork is really the fundamental basis of your routine. And when you are in the right spot and your body is positioned properly, if you have proper core positioning, that's really where it starts. Because if you're not in a good position to hit the ball, you're going to be off balance. One of the more mentally tough players out there is Annalie Waters, who is the most dominant female player at the present time, and her footwork is absolutely impeccable. And if you want to learn about amazing footwork, watch Annalie's footwork. And I think that's one of the reasons that she's so mentally tough and does so well in clutch situations is because she has that fundamental basis of excellent footwork that puts her in the right spots. And that's really what I focus on. And when I was coaching players regularly, that is one of the most fundamental things that I would preach to them is, especially when you're tight, especially when you're nervous. Because when people get tight out there, they don't move as well. Their footwork is a little bit off. So what I want to do is I want to encourage them to focus on their footwork, and that will in turn kind of loosen them up from the feet up. And then that translates into your upper body and your mind.
100%. She absolutely, I think, has the best footwork on tour. And I don't know how many times we can say stable base on this show, but when you watch her hit, she gets to the spot, she stabilizes herself, she eliminates variable, and she rips it.
I hope no one's doing a drinking game where every time we say stable base that they drink, because it would not be good.
Trouble.
So one final thing is that you just have to recognize that mindset is the skill that you have to work on, and you really have to just recognize what works for you and implement that and see how it works and adjust accordingly.
So I love that. And for me, probably my biggest takeaway is that gratitude piece that you talked about on the last episode. And taking this 20,000 foot view that you're like, hey, you know what? I'm just playing pickleball here. I'm playing, maybe, it's different if you're in the finals of the national championships, but in general, I'm just playing rec play pickleball here. And if I missed a shot, it's my fault. I didn't do something right. I need to get better at that thing. This is where I am today on the court. Despite all the variables, the other 3 people on court are playing the same conditions that I am. So let's just take responsibility for it. Focus on your movement, focus on your stable base, focus on your routine because you drilled some of this stuff, and try to eliminate, as soon as that point is over, that's never coming back. There's nothing you can do about it. Mindset. Stay strong.
Absolutely. And enjoy some pickleball.
Folks, you've now just listened to another episode of 4.0 Pro. As always, if you're looking for a new pickleball paddle, consider Carbon Pickleball, CRBN, pickleball.com. Get 10% off using the promo code 402P at checkout. And I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for listening. Keep on rocking.
Thank you for listening to 4.0 to Pro. For more tips, find us on Instagram at 4.0 to Pro. If you have a pickleball question, submit it at picklehelp.com. Now, get out there and dominate. But don't forget to have fun.